Meeting. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd rise and please join me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a few housekeeping things. It is nice to see staff and colleagues and community members here tonight. It's something we haven't been able to do for the last 16 months, and so I appreciate each and every one coming tonight. Another housekeeping item is the meeting is being recorded and streamed live. If you would be so nice to not get in front of our Director of Communications back there so it doesn't interrupt the process. Interruptions tonight, please. We cannot have interruptions. Interruptions will cause us to vacate all visitors to the room. So please be professional. And our first agenda item brings us to D1. I'm sorry. We're going to back up a little bit. Approval of the agenda.
Chair, I have, bear with me, I believe Robert's Rules of Order allows a preamble to, a quick preamble to explain a kind of an unusual motion. My preamble is, whereas 3 members of this board have been on for a short period of 13 days, and 2 members, Chair Aganaga and myself, approved the superintendent's contract just 1 month ago. Therefore, I'm moving that the agenda be amended to remove item D1, superintendent's employer contract.
Is there a second on the table? Motion fails to receive a second.
I have a second motion, and I just moved, I would like to, if the board's okay with it, to read a letter from our state senator, Senator Gelser, who's also a member of the Senate Education Committee.
Unfortunately, by the advice of the superintendent, we do not usually
That's why my motion was, I think it's good practice that
Do
when
we have
our
a
state
second for
senator
Mr. Thompson's
or our Senate
motion?
representative,
Motion fails to second.
great transparency, yeah.
Do the right thing. Silence is death. What are you afraid of? Transparency.
That's the last warning. It will be cleared out for any other interruptions.
Obviously not an educator if you can't listen to people say something for 14 seconds.
Sorry, we are conducting Robert's Rules of Order as required by state law.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to call for approval of the agenda, changing the order a bit, but first I would like to acknowledge that Superintendent Goff is not here tonight. Superintendent is not here at the request of the board for these proceedings. We thank her for working with us.
Thank you, Director Nyquist.
So with that, I'm looking at the agenda, would move approval of the agenda, but it strikes me that the public's interest in this board meeting would be better served if we just flip the order, strike F completely, start with E1, go to D2, and then D1.
Is there a second on the table?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Nay.
Motion passes. So we'll move on to D1.
No,
See, E1.
I'm sorry, E1. Safety protocols. As we had just, go ahead.
Go ahead.
As we discussed in our last meeting, the board did vote to remove masks, and then we also have several other items to cover.
So could I speak to that since I made the motion? My intent of the motion was that the policy of the district follow CDC, Oregon Health Authority, and Oregon Department of Health guidelines. And I can make a motion to that effect to clarify right now, if it would please the board.
Please.
Okay. I move that the Greater Albany Public Schools District follow CDC, Oregon Health Authority, and Oregon Department of Ed guidelines when it comes to COVID guidance and restrictions.
So there's a motion on the table. Is there any discussion?
I want to second the motion before we forget to do that.
The motion has been seconded.
Is there any discussion?
Can I make a comment for clarification that would be helpful for staff?
Yes, Assistant Superintendent Harlan.
So to just be clear on the language of the motion regarding whether or not. Excuse me, sorry. Sorry, Chair Aganaga, members of the board, it would be helpful if in the language of the motion, you're specific around the CDC recommendations or the CDC guidance and the CDC requirements, because there are 3 different categories of those. I just want to be clear so that staff knows what it is that you're expecting when it comes to the Ready School Safe Learners, the CDC guidance for students, and whatever comes out of OHA. 'Cause they use 3 different vocabulary.
My intent is the requirements.
Okay, because you said guidance and there's difference between the
Thank
guidance
you.
and the
Great
requirements.
clarification.
Thank you.
So the motion on the table is to follow CDC, Oregon Health Authority, and Oregon Department of Education health requirements. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'm in favor of that, requirements. It's just kind of amazing that discussion over the past however many months, questioning if we were following OHA guidance, regulations, and then once we just recently, last 2 nights ago, took over, now we're just going to say, let's just admit that we're following them. So I am 100% admit following. I think we always have been
We
following.
may have a unanimous vote tonight. I
Yes.
call the question.
Call the question has been called. Is there a second?
I second the call.
Call the question has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Then we
Motion
need to vote on
passes.
We need to vote on the motion. We just voted on calling the
Oh,
question.
sorry.
Just go ahead.
The motion, so the motion is that that Greater Albany Public Schools follow Oregon Health Authority, CDC, and Oregon Department of Education requirements.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
People don't even understand.
Remind me of the order.
We're
that
at
we-
D2.
D2. So this is going to be item number D2, recommendation to award contract to Rotary Lift and budget update for the new transportation facility. That will be Executive Director Russ Buttram.
Good evening, Chair Akanagwa, members of the board. A few notes tonight. In front of you, you have the recommendation that the board chair introduced. The specific action that we're calling for tonight is the award of the purchase of the lifts for the transportation garage with the details contained in the packet in a total of $452,287.38. Additionally, as something that we are working on bringing forward, each time we bring an item before the board, we'll also provide a budget update on that particular project. When you look at the memo, one thing I would point out to you is the notes in the memo track with the budget notes in the final page of that packet. So when you're looking at note number 1, you can see in the budget the shifts that have been made to reflect that changed information. The key things here is the current cost for the legally required advertisements exceeded our initial budget by $1,538. So we moved $2,500 from the project contingency to cover the additional costs and leave a little bit of a remaining balance in that area for additional requirements later. The lift purchase that we are bringing to you tonight does exceed the amount that we originally budgeted in the building, but when we budgeted for the fixtures, furniture, and equipment, we anticipated increased costs across that area because of increased costs and commodities. So we went ahead and budgeted for that. So what you see in the budget is a movement from the FF&E escalation line, which was us accounting for what we thought would happen in the future, and moving that back into the FF&E budget. Considered together, we don't believe that will be a long-term problem. We're on track within that. And then additionally, we had the commissioning fees, as we moved through that contract, were higher than we originally expected. So we have moved money from the miscellaneous consultants associated with the project to cover those additional fees. Overall, taken together, we still assess this project as being on budget and within plan.
Does anyone have any questions for Director Buttram?
So the action item tonight is to approve.
There is a recommended motion language at the bottom of the memo, Director Nyquist.
I'm in support, but I don't have a
I
laptop,
got it.
so.
Make a motion to approve the purchase of the new transportation facility shop equipment with Rotary Lift, Inc., quote, 2020285, in the amount of $452,287.38.
As presented by staff.
I would second the motion.
Motion has been moved and seconded. The motion is to approve the purchase of new transportation facility shop equipment from Rotary Lift Incorporated, quote, 2020-285, in the amount of $452,278.38 as presented by staff. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed. Your motion passes, Mr. Buttram.
Thank you.
So now you're to D1.
D1 is a superintendent employee contract. Let me explain to you that Melissa has previously worked with an older board to create a no-cause termination provision with an addendum once it was clear with the new board, the majority. The central issue is whether it is best of the interest of both parties to continue to work together in this motion on exercising the no-clause termination and provision in the superintendent's contract.
You haven't worked with her yet.
Got it. I move that the board approve the no cause of dismissal of the superintendent and providing the appropriate 10-day notification to the superintendent that her employment contract will terminate on July 24, 2021, and the district will pay the contractual amount specified in her contract.
How much is that? How much is that?
Is there a second? The motion has been moved and seconded.
I'd like to speak to it. I'd like to speak to the
Is there
motion.
discussion?
Yes, I'd like to speak to the motion.
Hey, don't silence her, dude.
Am I okay, Chair?
Go ahead, Mr. Thompson.
Yeah.
Director Thompson.
Okay, that preamble aside, when I saw, this is an unbelievable action that was put on this agenda. Specifically, this action, the agreed upon amount, this action would cost the district more than, I'm just guessing, more than $200,000 on just the paying of 1 year's salary and benefits. The total cost is going to be much higher. That's not fiscal responsibility. And just putting it on an agenda, on a special meeting, is not transparent. Like I said in my preamble before, 3 of you have been on this board just 13 days. Literally one regular meeting. And yet you've put on the agenda and you're tackling an action, which is the most serious thing a board can do, which is fire the superintendent. And I just want to ask why. I understand a no-cause clauses exist, but they exist for lawyers and mediators to come to a resolution. I'm asking you as a parent and as a community member, why? What is the community supposed to think? In this time of COVID, I think leaders, you've probably read the articles, education leaders throughout the country have been the kind of fall person for COVID protocols. Is that the reason? Implementing the protocols? I mean, whether you were restrictive or loose, you are probably going to have 50% of your community mad at you anyway. Is that the reason, or is that just a pretext for other reasons that we don't know about and that we won't know about under a no-cause termination? Is it because with her leadership and the previous board, we began to take the very first steps to improve a school system that has failed our unrepresented students, particularly our Black and Latino families, for a long time. And we know this because, well before you were on the board, the superintendent led concerted efforts to listen to these folks for the first time, to open the system to them, to create that sense of belonging, which you're going to hear about from me a lot on this board, that sense of belonging in our schools. That is a concept that is statewide. What are those parents and students going to think of this action? They're going to fill in the blanks. You have gotten emails, numerous emails over the course of a couple weeks. One of the first ones was from the Lynn Benton Hispanic Advisory Committee. In closing, they said families who have struggled with underrepresentation, culturally unique challenges, and difficulty navigating the system and myriad other issues are so grateful to see Superintendent Goff and her administration is noticing their needs and addressing them.
So,
What do those families think are going to say? I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. Because
So-
that's my point. There's a hole with the term no cause, and people are going to fill that hole.
What about our special needs
I-
kids that she hasn't been
I gotta ask you.
What about the, what about?
I'm allowing him, I just like my time.
So
I'll reserve my time.
I appreciate the dialogue. This is unbelievable action. You know, we talked about this Monday night. I know you know we talked about it Monday night because you were posting on social media about.
Yeah, I waited until
about
the
an-
agenda was officially out.
About an executive
Wait,
session.
you're saying I'm just doing a.
So here's my question to you. Wasn't this same issue before you less than a month ago?
No, not at all. Not
Really?
in the terminating her contract? Not in the least.
A no-fault buyout of the contract was not before the previous
No.
board in the last month.
Not like this.
Okay.
Not like this.
M-
Not like
Mr.
this.
Like what?
Mr.
It's fine.
Chairman.
No. It was discussed.
Who brought that up?
You're saying you're.
Mr.
totally-
Thompson.
It was not put.
Mr. Thompson, you are leading into executive session conversation.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying. It was a discussion, but there is so much, no, I'm going to say no. That was not the same as this item that is before us right here. Not the same.
Okay.
And it's still, whether I knew about it because I'm a board member, is still.
Mr.
it's
Thompson,
still
please, I
No, I'm not talking
urge you
about- I'm
to
talking about
highly
Monday night.
drop this issue on.
Okay.
because
Let me
you are-
finish.
you are
Please let me
flying
finish
very
my-
close to executive session
Please let me
privileged
finish.
information.
Please let me finish my.
You may continue with your
Thank you.
notes.
We got an email from every elementary school principal that said, as building leaders, we feel incredibly supported by Superintendent Goff. We rely on her to stay informed and communicate promptly and clearly. This keeps us all aligned. When decisions need to be made, we can count on Superintendent Goff to be transparent and to center the needs of all students at all times. This level of trust and vulnerability is incredibly difficult to find in a leader. So what will our principals think? What will our other staff think about this action?
Are you saying every principal signed that?
Yeah, no, it might have been nearly, I didn't check it. It was elementary, it was elementary school.
Every elementary?
Yeah, yes,
I don't
believe so.
think that's
not
true either.
Well, I'm willing to concede that point. I'm saying most. Okay, you want to play that game?
Well, if you're gonna make a statement, make it right.
You don't get to criticize, you can tell me that afterwards. You guys need to stop. We're going to follow Robert's rules.
Gentlemen,
okay?
please follow.
You want to follow
please
Robert's
follow the
rules of
format of
order?
your notes.
Mr. Chairman, I call the question.
The call to question has been called. Is there a second?
I second.
Call to question has been called and
Transparency.
seconded.
Transparency.
Mr. Thompson, I have asked the other gentleman not to
Director
interrupt
Thompson.
you.
Director Thompson.
I'm sorry, Director.
Color Y.
Is there any discussion on call to question? And we are moved to a vote.
Well, we need to vote on the call.
Is there a, sorry. Is there a vote on call to question?
I vote aye.
Director Wilson?
Votes aye.
Director Thompson?
No.
Director Morse?
Aye.
And myself is aye. Motion passes. We're moving on to voting.
No. This is wrong.
I already did it. I read that.
An explanation, you do. You have to explain this. Transparency. What does this mean for our district?
And who seconded?
How is it good?
And Wilson seconded.
Coming from your donors out of state? What will it do for us?
The motion is to move the board to approve a no-cause dismissal of the superintendent, providing a 10-day notification to the superintendent that her employment contract will terminate July 24, 2021, and the district will pay in contractual amounts,
What it's going to do?
amounts
Just go through it.
in her contract. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Why? Why?
All against?
No.
I will abstain. Motion passes.
You abstain?
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Is there a second to adjourn?
I have another motion. Don, I have another motion.
Shame on you.
Where's your fiscal responsibility?
Moved and
This
seconded.
is wrong.
Chairman,
Transparency.
I would like to move that we delegate authority to the chair and the vice chair to begin the search process for an interim superintendent and an acting
You're
superintendent.
dividing us more.
I second.
Can I speak to that motion? I would like to speak to that motion. I just want to make it clear.
Actually, Director Thompson, I'm gonna stop you. I would rather pass that privilege on to another board member. My schedule is very full and I'll be leaving.
So I withdraw the motion and I move we adjourn.
Well, who's
The motion to
superintendent tomorrow?
adjourn has been moved and seconded by
A
Director
question for
Wilson.
the chair.
All in
Okay,
favor,
that's a
say
privilege to
aye.
have a question. Who's the
Aye.
superintendent tomorrow?
All opposed?
The current superintendent is the superintendent tomorrow.
10 days.
What's
10 days.
going to make-
Passes
11
with
days, 11 days.